What's good, everybody? Hope everybody's well. So let's jump into it here. Make sure you hit the like button, become a member of the channel, members only content, yada, yada, yada. All right, like the video, most importantly, like the video. If you have anything you want me to talk about, I certainly will. I'm hoping to get to a lot more stuff, so please be patient with me. People that have sent me stuff, it is in my queue, some stuff I recorded. There's one in particular video I put up that is coming to mind, but there's a couple other videos I'm aiming to get to. So this was just asked of me as well. This is in response to the video I did about Claudia Jordan. I think it was about Claudia Jordan or the dating over 50. I can't remember. I'll put the screenshot up. I can't remember which one it is. Dating, I think it was dating over 50, in particular for men. And she wanted me to kind of address what was going on with the ladies. And, what should a lady who's over 45 be looking for and all that? It's a good question. I've covered a little bit of this. I think I did it for like younger people about vetting. You can go back into my archive there and just check those videos out about vetting and how to vet and what to look for. A lot of that's going to apply, but I will want to talk about, specifically being over 45 and, a few thoughts that come to my mind as I talk to other men and watch other panels and all that. The reason that we're in this territory that we're at is because the game has changed, and this is something they wanted me to address, is that the game has changed. And I guess I'll start off with this. The game has changed in that the game was, guys would grow up, go to school, get a career, get a job, work in the factory, the docks, whatever, get in the mine, whatever, get some kind of construction job, something like that, right out of high school, get a wife, and then go off into the sunset, presumably being compatible. We met people at church, we met people through, I guess they're calling warm approaches, where it would be an introduction type of thing, right? There was a video I always meant to go over. It was on LinkedIn about, how people met back in the days versus how they meet now. We understand now that they meet now more through social media and dating apps. But before, the number one ways that they met was just your circle of friends. It was on LinkedIn. Maybe I'll try to put the link up in here. Maybe we'll actually do that one day. It's kind of interesting. So anyway, so that's how the game has changed. The game has changed because now women have leveled up and become essentially on the same level financially, and in some cases have exceeded men. So the game has changed. So, going up to a woman saying, I'm going to buy you this and let me put you in that. I'll put you in this house, or I'll put you in this car if you become my wife, or here's a lifestyle that I can offer you. However they say it, with their flowery language and all that. So now the ladies are saying, well, what else you got? I mean, I got that. I got my house, car, 401k. I travel this, that, and the other. What else you got? Right? So now there's this idea that they want you to have want the men to have emotional intelligence. Okay, whatever that means. I in my short brief time, this is all new. This is 30 years, maybe the last 20, certainly the last 10 to 15. But certainly, we probably give it 20, 30 years where ladies have leveled up and gone to school and all that and got their stuff going on for them. We'll get just say 30 years. So now they want to know about emotional intelligence, and they're saying that the guys don't have that. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think the ladies can handle. In my brief time, I don't think they can really handle a guy who's emotionally intelligent, who can tell you what it is, can express himself and have a conversation and tell you, what I don't like and what I'm not going to accept and tolerate and how you're going to talk to me. And I understand this, that, and the other, and I know my worth. I don't think a lot of times ladies can handle that. That's just my opinion. Because I've had conversations like that. Whatever. Because he's still a man. He's not going to communicate. He's not going to communicate like a woman. He's not going to communicate. I'm not going to communicate like a woman. I've had ladies tell me, you can't talk to women the same way you talk to men. Like, stop saying the stuff you're saying. Stop saying the stuff you're saying. So that's a whole nother conversation. But I'm still a man, right? I'm still going to be assertive, and I'm going to say what's on my mind. But that's a whole other conversation we have another day. So that's how the game has changed, right? So the game, I was going to start this I was going to say this at the end, but I'm on this point right now. One thing that I really, this has been said so many times, it's been said so many times, and I know it's going to go in through one ear and it's going to go right out the other, but I'm going to say it anyway. Anita has said this from Better Love Movement. Actually, we're as I record this, we're talking about doing a show, and she's going to talk about how feminism has ruined women. I think we've done that. I've talked about it, but here's the game, how it's changed again. Feminism has ruined ladies. You're not moving like men, talking like men, acting like men. You want to sleep around like men. And a lot of ladies now are coming back and saying that they wish that they had not done that, right? And this, that, and the other. That they wish that, in particular, had not slept around. Because there's chemicals that are released in women, bonding chemicals. I talked about this. There are bonding chemicals that are released in women that are not released in men. And women are been giving, I actually read the study, right? Where they are doing things to try to make sure that they don't bond with the guy that they're sleeping with, right? So you just have a little jump off, whatever. You're doing things in order so you don't become emotionally attached to them, right? Sucking on breasts and look eye contact and saying their name during sex and all this kind of stuff, or thinking or having sex and think about other people, right? These are all different techniques that women are using to trick their bodies, or try to trick their bodies into not becoming emotionally attached with these men that you're sleeping with. Never mind the fact that what is the rate of P and V, the big O for women? Something like 70% of the time it doesn't happen. 70-80% of the time it does not happen. So what are you sleeping with these dudes for? If you need emotional connection to get stimulated, you got to be talked to. You need emotional stimulation to get into the mood, right? You got to be attracted to the guy outside the bedroom. He's got to woo you outside the bedroom. So therefore, the sex will be so much better inside the bedroom when you finally get to it. And then there's been studies about penile size and all this kind of stuff, right? Yeah, we're gonna go there. Maybe I should make this members only here. About preferential size. In order for the ladies to get off, they need a bigger one, versus they can have a slightly smaller one. if they're emotionally attached, for boyfriend penis or husband penis. So you're doing all these mechanisms and invasions and all this stuff to trick your body and to live and to move like men. And it's just and then there's a whole ladies have been sleeping around, and somebody wrote down in my comment section, sleeping around and 1/3 of babies that we know of or we believe are not the child's father, and all kind of crazy stuff like this, which is why they want DNA testing at birth, because ladies are just sleeping around and just doing this, that, and the other. I mean, listen, I'm not a woman, so I'm not going to pretend to try to get into the psyche. I'm just saying what I understand to be true or to know. So you guys deal with that the way you want. So I'm just talking about the way that the game has changed. And the guy who went to high school, again, the guy who went to high school, got a job, generally would get a wife. Ladies now go to high school, college, level up, and now they want somebody who's above them and may or may not be faithful to this dude, or disqualify a bunch of guys beneath them, and all this different stuff. So this is how the game has changed. This is how the game has changed. In social media, it's changed the game. You got people sliding in your DMs all over the place. You got, so now you think that this guy that you could really have a good life with is beneath you somehow, and you get all this attention. I've seen videos of ladies saying that they, if it was a boyfriend, or you get 1,000 likes on a video a day or something like that they would take the 1,000 likes versus the steady relationship. This is all about how the game has changed. And my advice to the guys is, listen, understand the game and just move accordingly. But I want to make this about the ladies because I was asked about that. So this is what the game has changed. And, in particular, let me go back to the sex piece about this. When the game has changed in these ways, and ladies are moving like this, right? you are not intentionally, but you're disqualifying yourself. Number one, because of your high body counts. If you don't want the guy asking you your high body counts, why is that shameful in the first place? You don't want to tell him. It obviously is saying something. Number one. Number two, the whole emotional connection type of thing, right? And then next thing you know, after that, particularly you get some time and experience after you. You get some time experience after you, right? Some different dudes, all these different dudes, right? And I think that the measure is either 3 guys or 5 guys. It becomes really hard to bond. And this is all, neuroscience and physiology and biology and all that kind of stuff. So you guys, I'm not going to go that deep into it. You can watch some other videos about that. There's plenty of videos out there about how women bond and all that kind of stuff, right? So after 3 guys or 5 guys, whatever it is, right, you now have trouble bonding with this guy. So now you're just gonna have trouble bonding with him. So this is why, speaking of Claudia Jordan, when she says she doesn't want to deal with mediocre peen, this is almost exactly what she said in one of the other videos I've watched. She doesn't want to deal with mediocre peen for the rest of her life. So that she could have a guy who's everything else that you want. He can communicate, he's got a good job, he's got this, he's got that. But whatever she considers mediocre peen, she'd rather not have that. So you'd rather not have this guy who can't perform to your level of expectation because some pookie was blowing you out for 15 years, and you've been, he's and again, my advice to the guys is learn what Pookie knows. I mean, learn to blow out backs and all this kind of stuff. I am going to make a members only video talking about that, so I'll go into that a little bit deeper a little bit later. But this is how the game has changed, and what women and men are dealing with, and why, as a 45-year-old woman, right? I mean, you still have a lot of years left, still have some beauty left, still got some stuff going on, right? Probably still, and sexual drive is really high, but you want something that's substantive, and you don't want somebody who's just, you don't want the 30-year-old who's just blowing you out all the time because he can't have a conversation, he can't lead you, and everything else that the ladies say that they want, right? So this is a problem again. That is a brand new problem because the game has changed. Because the game has changed. So you gotta understand that, right? So, this is, how do you all navigate that is going to be difficult. And if you're 45, right, you've got a lot of experience behind you. This is the concept of the alpha widow, because this guy was great. He had everything you wanted. But now, maybe sexually or whatever, you just can't deal with somebody else. And it's unfortunate. Because my philosophy is that sex can be worked on, right? Sex first maybe 2 or 3 times can be awkward, but you can get it together, right? Have some conversations and this, that, and the other, and you can get it together. But again, I'm going to save that for another video. So what else do I got here? All right, so let's define some stuff here. So standards and preferences, right? So standards, I think I have that. I think I got a screenshot of this. It's a little difficult to define, but I would say let's just call it the bare minimum, right? This is the standard, right? You got to have some standards, right? You want your man to have standards, and I would say your standards should be that he's got to be able to communicate, he's got to have good hygiene, car, home, and job. Car, his own, depending on where you live, right? Maybe mass transport. If you're in New York City, whatever, maybe car's not a big deal because he's gonna take the train or Uber or whatever to come see you. But he's got means of transportation to get what he needs. He's got a job, and this is for 45 and up, right? He's got a job, and he's got his own home or place to live, right? Doesn't live with his mama, doesn't live with his boys, his own place, right? So that's what I think. That's what I would say is the minimum, right? His hygiene is good. He can communicate. He can have a conversation with you, whatever, and all that. Then we get into preferences, right? This is where he's got to be college educated. He's got to be so tall. He's got to his job's got to bring in so much money. He's got to, what else did I write? His muscle tone. This is where we get to 6'6", right? 6 feet, 6 inches. No, 6 feet, 6 pack abs, 6 figures. And some would add the fourth 6 is 6 inches, right? He's got to have a full beard, penile length, muscle tone, all this other stuff that is just preferences. Now, as a 45-year-old woman, you got to know what you want. Not what and I'm talking about whether you just want somebody just to blow you out every once in a while, or you want someone to, it's probably not really professional language for somebody who claims to have a doctorate, right? so sound like Umar here. People do email me about that. Are you talking like this? Supposed to be an educated dude. So what was I gonna say? I'm gonna park far away here and see who parks next to me here. It's crazy. Park far away here, make my video here, and see who parks right next to me. All right, so those are preferences, right? Now, again, if you're a woman, 45 years plus, and if you want a substantial, long-lasting relationships, you should hold to your standards. You should definitely hold to your standards, right? You don't want to take in some boy who is, you got to help him through life. I don't think that any woman wants that. That every woman I've ever talked to, from the videos I watch, conversation I with, they all want to be led. They all want to be led in some way. They want stuff taken off their plate. They want a man who can take control, take charge, plan vacations, sit down and do bills. What they want, that ability. And if your guy doesn't have that ability, then what are you doing with this dude, right? So hold to your standards. Again, the communication. He's got a car, home, job, and hygiene. And also in the communication, I would say, how often do you need to communicate? How often do you need this brother to talk to you or whatever? So that's something you got to figure out. And then the preferences, amount of money he makes, is the type of car he drives, height, full beard, cleft chin, whatever, muscle tone, side of town he lives on, all that other stuff, right? So I think that if you're looking for something substantial, then you got to forget about your preferences. It would be nice to get them. You can certainly be attracted to someone. You can certainly flirt with someone about that way. You can certainly do that, but you got to understand that a dude who's in that category is going to have more options. He's going to have more options, and you are going to have to be outstanding for him to say, man, this is the woman I want to be with. You are going to have to be outstanding. So are you outstanding? Right? Don't forget, the part of all these standards and preferences and about muscle tone and 6-pack abs and stuff. Are you in the gym? Are you working out? Are you the best version of yourself? That's one of the things you got to ask yourself, right? Before you come with all this, he got to do this, that, and the other. Are you that as a woman, right? Are you good with money and all this kind of stuff? You want him to be good with your money, but are you good with money, right? So those are conversations you got to have. Those are conversations you got to have. Listen, as a twice married guy, you got to have conversations about money. You got to have conversations about kids. Now, presumably after 45, you probably aren't talking about having children, and if he has children, this might be a standard. I mean, I'm placing standards pretty high up there. It's up to you though to kind of figure that out. But standards, they would have to be, if he's got kids, what does that mean as far as, is he still paying child support? Do the kids live with him? Does he live with his kids? What kind of person or parent is he? Right? So you might want to look at all that. So some people don't want kids. A man with kids who are, in their single digits, 9 and under, some 12 and under, because at 45, you might be able to be in a place where you can travel. Like that's a standard for me. For me, that's a requirement. I mean, listen, I'm not dating anybody. I've met some ladies with some 4-year-olds and nice girls and stuff, but listen, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. not doing that. So ladies, you got to have that about you as well. You know, where is he at with all that? What else should you be looking for concerning standards and preferences? All right, so one of the things that, you know, when I talk about, you know, the reason I'm making this differentiation between standards and preferences is because, you know, again, he's going to have his pick of the litter, and, you know, you might meet a guy who just has a 1-bedroom apartment, and because he doesn't have this lavish home, is that a big deal? That, to me, that should not be a big deal, because he might be frugal. He might choose to travel, you know, every 2 months, and therefore he chooses to save money. You know, what is he spending his money on, right? That's why the type of car and all this other stuff, right? That, a lot of times, you know, we don't, you know, a guy, he might be doing that. He might have a fancy car to impress women, to attract them, but a lot of guys don't, you know, some guys are into cars and some guys aren't. I got this little thing here because I was going to leave the country to travel, and I took this job at this university, and I need to get back and forth there. And now I'm like, man, you know, and now I'm stuck with this car payment. But another thing too, just a little thing here, always put down more on your car, because my car payment was what it was before. Now it's like $200 less because I keep putting extra money on there. So you know, you pay down your car faster, right? So actually, it might be done 6 months or so. I got to look again. But anyway, always put down more on it. So yeah, so he's got all that. So it's the side of town he lives on, the size of his house, size of his condo, you know, all that stuff. You just want to know this man has a job and can pay bills, right? It would be nice. It would be you can certainly have a preference for this thing, but it shouldn't be a deal breaker because he doesn't make 150 grand a year. The man makes 70, 80 grand a year. He can pay his bills depending on where you depending on where you live, you can live, right? I think one of the cheapest states to live is like Indiana. If you know, I was looking one time, right? You can live comfortably, and a man can live comfortably in Indiana. Listen, I live comfortably off my retirement. The little bit of change I get from YouTube puts gas in my car, and me teaching in universities puts a little bit extra pocket money in, you know, but I live comfortably on that. That's why another reason I want to leave the country, so I can continue to live comfortably, you know. But you know, so if you're living comfortably as a woman, you meet a man who's making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year. He's living comfortably. His bills are paid. He's living by himself. Why would you disqualify that man? I mean, that is so childish to me. I get if maybe you're in your 20s and you really want to start a family, so you need to know that this man has this level of income so he can support you if you want to stay home. I think that's actually kind of smart to do that. But if you're 45 plus, really, to me, you ought to be just looking for companionship. And I don't mean that as a pejorative way, and I don't mean to say the word but my goodness, you know, what does this guy need to make 150 grand a year for? What does he need to work all this crazy overtime? Somebody sent me a video, and I had seen it already, about a guy who wanted his wife to stay home, and he was just doing nothing all day. Excuse me. She was taking care of the home. He was, I think Anton Daniels reacted to it, but I saw it before Anton did. And he was working two, three jobs, I think doing DoorDash or Uber and driving for Amazon or something crazy like that. So he was going to pay his wife the same amount of money. If you looking for that craziness, and listen, all I heard when I'm listening to this guy talk about, he would do this, he would take his kid to this, go home, take a nap, go back to work, put this on, do this extra job, drive here, do that. All the stuff that he ironed out, and he was giving his wife the same amount of money that she had before they, what purpose was that? To give her the same amount of money, and all you're doing is putting wear and tear in your body. You got to get these cat naps here and there, waking up at 4 a.m., this, that, and the other. Cool, she's probably taking care of you in the house and the kids and this, that, and the other. But listen, you're putting yourself in an early grave. And listen, I was 45 when I had a triple bypass. And that's why I said never again when I'm going to work. Never again am I going to work this hard. I'm not going to work this hard. I was doing some stuff with lawyers. This is just my story. I was doing some stuff with lawyers. I was on vacation, looking for places to live out the country, sitting in my home, sitting in my Airbnb and in my hotel, typing up papers for doing research for these lawyers and stuff. I said, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I'm good. I'm good. I got a 401k. I got a house I can always sell. I got an income for it. What am I doing? Why am I doing this? So I took myself off the website. I'm good. Off the website where lawyers can find me and stuff. And I'm good because I don't want to work myself to the death. And if you're a 45-year-old woman, I don't think that you would want your man working himself that hard, right? He's probably in a place where he can start to wind down. Between the ages of 35 to 55 are a man's greatest years of making money. So he might be in that place. He still might be on the grind, still getting up at 4 a.m., going to the gym and doing whatever. That's great. But if you meet a man who doesn't, again, that type of man who's on that grind like that is going to have his pick of the litter. And if you meet a man who is not as ambitious, but still has a decent job where he is able to live on $40, $50, $60, $70,000 a year, and he's good just doing this, that, and the other, and whatever, why would you pass that dude up? These standards that these ladies have set for themselves and this, that, and the other, he's got to be this, that, and have this level of education. I think that all that is a mistake. I think that all that is a mistake, and it's keeping a lot of ladies single. You're refusing to look at the guy who the Amazon driver, the postal worker is flirting with you or whatever, the UPS driver. Maybe he's a manager there. I know a girl one time. She used to clown her. It was so disrespectful. She used to clown her husband, who was a hard-working man he worked at what's that place? Best Buy. He was a manager at Best Buy, and this dude was trying to, he had gone to a conference to become like a district manager, senior manager, or something like that, right? This man is on his way up, but she used to clown him. She used to clown this dude, like, oh man, it's clowning her own husband who was on his way up, trying to make the moves. Crazy how people are living. So listen, that's just a little bit about dating after your 50s, right? So 45 and up. And so let me get back to the sex thing here and just talk about, a lot of times these guys, they want to get to the do because they want to know the same thing too. And a lot of times ladies do too. They want to get to it, right? Is the sex going to be good? You got to figure it out for yourself. Again, my notion is, my statement stands that what you've done in your 20s and 30s it could haunt you when you're in your 40s. It could. Because now you might meet a good guy, and because you've given yourself to so many different men and guys who are doing all this crazy stuff to you, right? And all that, it may be harder for you to really kind of bond with this guy. So that's why, a lot of times ladies, I've talked to, I've had ladies on my platform like, oh, I can't believe these ladies want to jump into it so soon and they don't wear condoms and making fun of me because of my stance that I said about that. I'm telling you, these ladies don't want to do it. I'm telling you, they want to get to it before you do. That almost ought to be before your last name. Oh, okay, listen, let's figure this out. Are we sexually compatible? Right? Before I know your last name, before I know your full telephone number, before I commit it to memory, before I actually put your name in my phone, I want to know that you're good at this. That's what they want to know. So yeah, they don't want to use prophylactic, even though black males do the most of all ethnicities. I don't know if black females, I can't remember, black females don't. I did a video about that, but So listen, this is an issue. So again, you set yourself up to become this alpha widow, where this guy right here was blowing your back out. This guy over here had a good job. This guy over here was just so sexy, I just couldn't deal with it. This guy over here was just so handy. You try to put all that to one, and now you're 45 and looking to date and trying to find all these different types of guys in one person, and that's not the way it's going to be. Same thing with men, right? Same thing with men, right? You might have this great girl who's great in bed, but she's just lousy. She's just a lousy cook. And you might have a woman who's great domestically, but just terrible in bed. You might have all this. You got to figure this out and do the trade-off analysis for yourself, and all that, and what's going to be important for you. And remember, standards, preferences, and I guess I should also add in there is deal breakers. You got to figure all that out. Again, watch my previous video when I talked about this. So you got to figure all that out. And my advice, if somebody's asking me as a 45-year-old woman, I think you got to let some of those preferences go. Forget this height thing. Forget this fully bearded thing. Forget this, how deep his voice is. Forget this full head of hair thing. Forget all that. Forget all that. You want to know, does he work? Does his peen work? Can he balance his checkbook? Is he living check to check? Is he living with his mama? You got to figure all that, right? And as long as you have somebody who is good, because remember, the more elements that you require, the more he's going to be attracted to other women. And what is it that you're going to have that's going to make you stand out? You got to figure that out. So that's just my thoughts. Those are my opinions. So, geez, start drinking out of the metal bottle here. All right, I'm going to grab lunch. Nobody parked next to me. And so listen, I hope I did everything. Standards, preferences, game, I went over that. Game is difficult to define. It's going to mean different things to different people, but the game has changed. How to acquire a woman has changed drastically for men, and it's made it so much easier for women to hook up, but it's probably made it even more difficult for you to partner up. You can hook up and have all the sex that you want as a woman, but the difficulty is partnering up. And men are having a difficult time partnering up, and they're having a difficult time getting sex, particularly, for 20 and 30 years. They're completely checked out, dudes, but that's for another day. Stick with the woman for today. So let me know your thoughts, your opinions. Did I hit anything? Did I miss anything? If you're a 45-year-old woman, what problems are you having? I guarantee you it's something that has to do with he's emotionally unintelligent. He can't provide, he's compromised some way, or, whatever. Maybe he's not fully straight or whatever. I know some ladies are doing lavender weddings now, where they're getting with this dude who, I think that term is new, but I remember reading about that 30 years ago. Women who were intentionally dating women who were intentionally dating and marrying men who were feminine and even questionable, because they wanted the companionship and partnership with. Their communication and going shopping with them and doing a lot of those feminine things meant more than a masculine man to them. So, if you can deal with a guy who's less feminine, it's gonna take what it's gonna take, and you gotta do what you gotta do. So, would you date a guy who had at one time in his life been sexually intimate with a dude? These are things you got to consider as you get older, right? Lord, I can't wait to get out this game. It's just wild out here, right? So these are all things you got to consider. Those are all things you got to consider. So think about them. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions. Hit me in the comment section. What else that I missed there? Yeah. Much love and peace.